What's up, everyone? Kriddle here, and I have played a lot of Diablo 4, and I want to kind of give my thoughts on it after putting in several hundred hours. I've leveled up 2 characters to 100, I've got another seasonal character here, and I've leveled every single class at least to level 50 because I wanted to get a full feel of the game before I gave any type of real review. So overall, the quick version of this whole thing is I have had a lot of fun playing Diablo 4, and I feel like I've gotten my money's worth out of it. Now, that does obviously sound like there's a big but to follow, and there is. So I'm going to go over some of the good stuff that I feel like was really good about the game, and then I'm going to go over some of the things that I feel like needs improvement, so you can decide whether you want to purchase it and play it or not. So starting out, the game does look very good. I love the aesthetics of the game. The open world is absolutely massive, which is really, really nice. You can go and do tons of things everywhere. You actually start out over here in the Kyovashad area, and this is Act 1, and then it opens up very quickly to where you can do Act 2 and 3 of the main story in any order that you want, which basically takes place all up here in the northern half of the map. And then later on, you'll open up additional acts to go through the rest of the story. So as far as the story is concerned, it is a fun story. It's interesting, and I had a lot of fun going through it, both single player and with friends. I think that the co-op aspect of the game is very, very nice, and I do recommend playing the game that way. There's a few things that make it really great, is that you can just jump to your friends whenever you want. You go to one of these waypoints in one of the main cities here, or I think any of the cities, but definitely the main cities, and you'll have little waypoints that you can jump to your friends, right here, that take you directly to them no matter where they are. Nobody has to put up any type of portal or anything to do that. It's just automatic, which is really awesome for that co-op gameplay. Another thing that I really like is the build diversity in the game. You do have a lot of options here in the builds, so you can go through and kind of mix and match and do whatever you want as far as your skill tree. And then once you get into the higher tiers, you do have these paragon boards, which seem a bit overwhelming, but they're really not too bad once you fully understand them. And it makes it a lot of fun to go through and just plan out these really interesting builds. In addition to that, you can change these at any time just by right clicking and placing another one. You can move points around as much as you want, and it only costs a little bit of gold. In this case, it's going to be 45,000 gold, which might seem like a lot to a brand new player, but it does start out very, very cheap. In fact, it's free up until about level 8, and then after that, it starts to slowly climb up to level 50, and then it starts to get a lot more expensive. But they did recently lower the cost of that from level 50 to 100 in the most recent 1.1.1 patch that they just came out with. So that's another one of the great things, I think, is that you can just go through and kind of change that around as much as you want. Another really fun aspect are the world bosses. There's like a world boss area right here. There's another one down here, and then you have a third one wherever it is over here somewhere. So you have the 3 different types of world bosses. They're a lot of fun to fight, especially the first few times that you do it. When you're lower level, like 25 to 30, and then you're building up from there. They're a lot of fun. You have 12 total people that are fighting it, and it's just a big, massive, fun MMO style of fight. There's not really a whole lot of mechanics that you have to learn or anything. And then as you get into the higher levels, it ends up being 1 or 2 players are able to kill it in about 10 seconds. And it's just a super easy, quick fight that you can get some Grim Favor and a couple of drops for. Another thing that I really also enjoy are these side events. So once you get to level 50 plus and you've finished the story and you unlock World Tiers 3 and 4, which we'll go over in a minute, you do start getting these things called Hell Tides, which are little events that pop up like this. That can be a lot of fun to go do, and you can get some very good rewards through the chest that way. And then also, as you finish the main story, you unlock these things called Tree of Whispers quests, which are basically give you Grim Favors, and then you can turn those in down here to the Tree of Whispers and get some loot that way as well. Those are some great ways to level up characters. Once you finish the story and you're leveling up additional characters, you can go through and do that. So it is a way to level up rather than just grinding out dungeons over and over if you don't want to do the whole dungeon grind. The story for Diablo 4 was interesting. It's interesting enough, and I had fun with it. But it wasn't really the best story, but it was, good enough to keep me interested in wanting to play through and finish it, which I finished around level 45 the first time. And I did play that co-op with friends as well, which makes the game a lot better. The side quests, there are hundreds of side quests in this game. So if you go here and you look at the region progress, you can see down here there's 35, 49, etc. There's a bunch of side quests throughout the game, and each area, each of these 5 areas, has a main story arc within itself. So it's not just the main side quest or the main story quest that goes on over the entire world, but you have these 5 fairly large story arcs and then a bunch of little side quests within those areas that can just add a little bit of a lore for you. Now, the best part of the game happens when you jump from world tier 1 and 2, which is the starting world tiers, which I recommend everyone play at world tier 1. There's no point in playing at world tier 2. But then once you jump into world tier 3, there is a significant boost in difficulty, and then again another significant boost in world tier 4. That's where I found the most fun, is playing from world tier 1 and 2 to jumping into world tier 3, and you start obtaining these unique items, which were a lot of fun to get. And they can really change your build quite a bit when you get some of these items, because they have very fun, unique effects. I'm not going to go and show off all of those right now, but I do have quite a few of them, that allow you to suck in enemies when you teleport and things of that nature. I will say that when it comes to those unique items, I believe the Druid is by far the best class, because you can mix and match a lot of those unique items and make these really fun, cool builds. So when you get into level 50 plus, that's where things start to get a little bit cloudy. I still think it's the best part of the game because it is a lot of fun to do, but then a lot of the classes you start to see a discrepancy in the builds and in the way that each class is played. And it ends up making a couple of the classes, specifically the Rogue and the Druid, be really good, while the Sorcerer and Barbarian are pretty terrible. The Necromancer being somewhere in the middle of that, in my opinion. Now, they did make a lot of changes recently in the 1.1.1 patch, which help out with that, but it doesn't really solve the issue. Another issue that I did run into is your inventory management. If you come over here to your stash, this is your entire inventory right here, and you do have now 5 stashes. This last one I just purchased in the 1.1.1 update, so they did at least acknowledge that there is a problem here. But as you can see, I've got a lot of stuff in here, and I'm very conservative when it comes to items that I put in here. I have gems, obviously, for this one area, which they are supposedly going to be fixing, but it might take them 6 months to a year before this is going to be fixed, which is, in my opinion, absolutely ridiculous. But hopefully that will be removed completely, and that will free up this space here, and those will go down here into your currency tab. But as you can see, I still have a lot of inventory being filled up with unique or legendary items and some of these unique items here. And then now, because of Season 1, we also are adding in these hearts, which take up quite a bit of inventory space. Most of this stuff is all perfect, so meaning that if I hover over something right here, it is a perfect item, giving the perfect legendary aspect that I can rip out and use if I wanted to on a character. But in most of this, again, is also for my Sorcerer. Some of it is for my Druid. So if I were to play multiple classes, I would run out of space very quickly, and it is a major problem that you probably have heard about if you were following anything Diablo 4. So the next thing that I want to talk about is going to be some of the bad stuff. So the overworld, while it is huge and fun and interesting to play through, it does have quite a bit of lag at times. When you first load into it, almost every time when I come back from a dungeon, there's a brief pause and lag when I go into some of the hell tides, or I'm changing from one area. As you can see, these white outlines here, when you're changing from one area to another, there is a transaction for switching to different servers and things. And that lag is very noticeable when it happens. Sometimes your character will completely just freeze and then it'll go again, which, if you're playing something like a hardcore character, can be very nerve-wracking if you are going into a Helltide and you switch areas and there's a lot of enemies there, you could instantly die and lose your character permanently. So beware of that. Another thing is the horses in the game. So you do have mounts that you can get. These horses are an interesting thing to have in an action RPG. It's the first time that I've seen them in an action RPG, but they don't work perfectly. They do have some major issues when you're trying to move around, and they really only sprint east to west. If you try to go north to south for some reason, they won't go very fast. So there are some issues there. So the overworld, while being very massive, very fun, and very interesting, it has a lot of issues that suck that fun out of it very quickly if you run into them. Another thing is the grind that you have in this game. Like I said, the most fun part of the game is level 50 to 70 in my opinion. That's when you start to see these unique items and you can start making these really cool fun builds to just absolutely slaughter enemies everywhere. But then once you hit about level 70 and you try to go from world tier 3 into world tier 4, essentially what you're doing at that point is starting over from scratch on all of your gear, because the gear has another bump up at that point, and you literally need to go and re-gear your entire character a third time. So the first time is from level 1 to 50, the second time from level 50 to 70, and then a third time from level 70 to 100. So at that point you can get the best gear in the game. However, you've already done that before previously, and now you're doing it again, and you're like, this is just very tedious. In addition to that, the levels start to really slow down around level 70, and especially once you get into the 80s and 90s, to where it's almost not fun and you have to sit there and grind and grind and grind. They did recently make some changes with that do help out, putting more mob density inside of dungeons. They also up the XP inside of nightmare dungeons in a previous patch, which helped out quite a bit, but it's still very grindy and just doesn't feel fun. And then your build overall at that point doesn't really change. You're literally just doing the same thing over and over. The only new thing that you can start looking forward to, starting at level 80, I believe 80 or 85, is the ultra or uber uniques. You start getting into those, which are extremely rare, and you pretty much shouldn't even be looking for them. Just assume that they're not in the game, and if you get one, then be super excited. There are a few uniques that you start to get only in World Tier 4 for each of the classes, and those can be very sought after and, again, change some of your build gameplay. But overall, by that point, you probably know exactly what you want for your build, and you're probably already doing it, and those are just going to be minor boosts to that gameplay. Now, with all of that in mind, I will say that starting around level 50 is where that build diversity starts to fall off. You end up seeing a huge discrepancy in your classes. So the druid and rogue being the top, and the sorcerer and barbarian being the bottom, with the necromancer being somewhere in the middle. Now, all of the classes can make these uber powerful, crazy builds, but they're very niche. And the druid, I think, is by far the best to play from level 50 to 100 because of the uniques that you can get. You can mix and match them and make some really interesting, fun builds. None of the other classes, in my opinion, have that feel to them once you get into the higher levels. The last thing that I really want to talk about are the cosmetics, if I can remember how to get there to them. The shop here is very, very expensive and lackluster. I think that the reason for the shop is obviously so they can, make some extra money. And some of these things can be very neat, like the spectral armor, it looks okay. And some of the cosmetics down here, especially the necromancer, do look very, very nice. This is one of the first ones that I saw in the game, and I was like, ooh, that really does look nice. But overall, these, in my opinion, are not worth it. I mean, that's a $28 upgrade. And as you can see, I did spend some money and buy some of these so that I can try them out. This one right here is $14. And I don't think, in my opinion, that this gear setup is worth $14. You can, for free, go over here into the wardrobe and change these so you can unlock a lot of these throughout your gameplay. This thing that I'm currently wearing right here is my this is my seasonal armor that you get for getting up to level 90, I believe, in the season. So I think this is actually 89 is the helmet, and then you get the horse armor at level 90. But this is the stuff that you earn throughout your seasonal gameplay, which looks really nice. But again, you do have to pay to get into the season, and then you also have to burn through that entire season, which can be a bit tedious. If you're just playing the game normally, you will get through it eventually, but again, it is a bit of a grind. So overall, what do I want to say about Diablo 4? Is it good? Is it bad? I think the TLDR of this whole thing is, yes, the game is fun. It's worth, in my opinion, the $60 or $70 price tag on it to play through it. If you want to play through an action RPG, see the story and that kind of thing one time, or play through it with your friends very casually. If, however, you are trying to push into the end game, if you're a big ARPG player and you're trying to push into the end game and you want to do everything there is to do in the game, I think you're going to get very bored very quickly once you hit the end game area. There's really nothing to look forward to after about level 70. And there's really almost nothing to do. There is the, uber boss at the end that you can try to go fight, which is the pinnacle, level 100 boss. And then there are nightmare dungeons, which push all the way up to level 100 nightmare dungeon, which are actually level 154, I believe, enemies, making it very, very difficult. And those things are hard to do. However, to do either one of those things, you're most likely going to have to make a very, very niche build, go out and scour the internet and really learn the mechanics of the game and the math behind it, and then make these builds and then go through and be able to do that. If you don't do that, you're going to have a very, very hard time. So I feel like that's where we are with the game. They boasted that the seasons were supposed to be, this big thing. Again, that's what I was hoping for, is like, okay, the base game is good enough for me. I enjoy it. And then, I'm going to maintain my gameplay through the seasons. So now that I've played the season all the way up to level 100, I've unlocked everything there is to do in the season. As you can see here, I don't have these unlocked because it is broken. So I did not put points into this, but I do have the points to put into. I just chose not to because it makes things difficult. I'm not going to go into all of that right now. But I have done everything that there is to do for the season. And I just felt like for how much they boasted the season, it really fell short. There's, maybe a few hours at most of story that you can do in the season. And then the only other thing is you unlock these hearts, which you can put into your gem slots here. And that's pretty much it. That is the entire season right there in a nutshell. Other than that, you're just going to go back to your main grind, which is going through nightmare dungeons and trying to defeat Uber Lilith and going in and doing these Helltide events that pop up over here for loot that you don't really need anymore because you've already figured out exactly what you wanted and you pretty much already have that. I have most of the gear that I need. There's a few upgrades that I could possibly get, but at this point it's not going to really make that big of a difference for me, and it's not going to allow me to push any farther in the game unless I completely change my build and go for one of those, like I said, niche builds that can push all the harder content. So that's my opinion of the game. That's where we're at currently. Hopefully they will fix this in the future. They have been very forthcoming with their information, doing these campfire chats and having dev streams, and they're talking about things, and they're being, in my opinion, very open about it, and they do admit to their mistakes and they are trying to fix those. However, we are going to see how they can fix those in the future and if they fix them in a good way or not. That's really what's going to make this game either good or bad. I give them maybe season 2 or 3 to be able to fix those. So a year or less for sure. If they are not able to make significant changes in that amount of time, I do not believe that Diablo is going to last much longer. But if they do make the changes that they are claiming they want to do, I think that it could have a very long life, much like Diablo 3 did. I will say that Diablo 3 started out kind of lackluster, and then it built up to something much, much better. I'm hoping that Diablo 4 does the same. So thank you for watching. I hope you found this video informational, and if so, please like, subscribe, follow. And I do stream daily over on Twitch if you want to see other games. Right now we are playing Baldur's Gate 3 and a little bit of Diablo, and I've also checked out Palia, so if you want to know anything about those, come on over and take a look. Thanks for watching, and see you next time. Bye!